Oh, goody.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Zombies here again, and today we're back with another Marvel Snap video. So in this one, we're going through all the cards for the Young Avengers season, giving some general thoughts about these cards, whether they're good or not, worth picking up or not, and where they're likely to find a home. This is definitely a little bit of a different style compared to the way I normally do things on here, so I'd love to hear your feedback on the video in the comments below. We're going to kick things off with our Season Pass card of the month in Kate Bishop Hawkeye. Kate Bishop is a 2-cost, 3-power card that reads, on reveal, add 2 arrows to your hand. The possible arrows we have here are the Acid Arrow, Grapple Arrow, Basic Arrow, and the Pim Arrow. A lot of these kind of mimic or are very similar to other cards we have in the game, with Basic Arrow literally being a Hawkeye, Pim Arrow being a slightly smaller Ant-Man, Acid Arrow being a smaller Green Goblin, and Grapple Arrow acting as a inverse Ghost Spider. To me, Kate Bishop is the best and most interesting card of the month. It reminds me a lot of Nico Minoru, and the fact that the outcomes this card creates vary a lot game to game, and that will create some pretty skill testing moments where you're not going to always know what you're going to be getting out of this card, and so you'll have to adapt on the fly to make the best possible plays with the things you end up with. In terms of decks that would actually want to use this card, I do think this is going to be splashable in a lot of decks just by virtue of being a decently statted 2-cost card in a world where a lot of 2-cost cards aren't super impactful. And then having the arrows to later on fill out your curve, which is nice. But I do think the best home for her is likely to be some kind of bounce deck where you can bounce her to get more arrows with Beast, or you can bounce the arrows themselves to get more value out of their effect, which is most useful with things like the Grapple and Basic Arrows. Some other cards and archetypes that will really appreciate this kind of card, I think, are Werewolf by Night, getting more value out of having more on-reveal effects to keep moving your wolf all around the board, and he has natural synergy with bounce stuff too, so that seems like a slam dunk. Zoo is another one where Zoo really likes having a bunch of 1-drops to spread across the board, so a decent body that gives you more things to spam out onto the board is just a great fit for Zoo. And then Black Swan as well, who has been seeing a bit more play recently in bounce decks in specific, really helps enable getting these arrows out if you might not otherwise be able to fit that extra 1 cost here or there into your curve. To me, Kate is the slam dunk of the season. I think this is by far the best card of the season, as well as the most interesting and fun one. It is a 5 out of 5 stars for me. Following that up, we have Marvel Boy, who I think is the contender for second best card of the month. Marvel Boy is a 3-cost, 2-power that reads, after each turn, give 3 of your 1-cost cards plus 1 power. His application is definitely a lot more limited than Kate's, though you could argue that you could put them in a deck together since she will be giving you more 1-drops, which you want for Marvel Boy to buff up. However, the curve is a little awkward there because you don't really want to curve out Kate into Marvel Boy, since that means you probably only have 1 or 0 1-drops on the field, but maybe something like playing Kate on 2 into playing some 1-drops and the arrows on 3 and then following up with Marvel Boy on 4 could be a reasonable outcome. Or even using something like Black Swan on 3 to play out a bunch of 1-drops at the same time as playing Marvel Boy on turn 4. He seems very strong in that swarm type of build that is trying to just vomit out a bunch of 1-drops onto the field and then buff them up through various means like Blue Marvel and Khazar. So absolute slam dunk in Zoo decks, where I think he will become a core staple. However, the fact that you really do have to have a critical mass of 1-drops to get the most out of his effect, I do think will make this card a bit more limited in terms of the decks he sees play in. Aside from Zoo, I'm having a bit of a hard time finding a place that can justify this card. However, maybe we'll see some more mid-range decks adapt to this by just throwing in Shauna or Kate to give you more 1-drops to justify the Marvel Boy inclusion. But in general, I think this is really just a Zoo-focused card for the time being. That said, it seems like he's going to really shine in that archetype, so I'm giving him a 4 out of 5. Next up, we have Wiccan. Wiccan is a 4-cost, 7-power that reads, on reveal, if you spend all your energy this game, plus 2 max energy. So that is pretty strong. Obviously, we've seen extra energy is an incredibly powerful mechanic in Marvel Snap. However, I don't think the current design of Wiccan is likely going to compete on the same level that we've seen with some other energy enablers, such as Hope Summers, Arsham, and maybe even Electro. Traditionally, cards that grant extra energy are very powerful, so getting that effect on an above rate 4/7 body must be good, right? Well, I'm not so sure. This card requires using all your energy each turn before playing it in order to get +2 energy for the rest of the game. This requires playing a lot of cheaper cards in order to satisfy that condition, when those same cheap cards aren't really what you want to be doing with all this extra energy. The most enticing use case for this card involves going a 1-drop into Zabu or Psylocke on 2 and Wiccan on 3, resulting in having extra energy available to you for the next 3 turns of the game. The problem is, this requires building the deck in a way that makes it very awkward to play cards out if you don't draw your ramp combo. In order to get the maximum benefit from your ramp, you really do want a bunch of powerful 6-cost cards in the deck, so you end up with a deck that ends up feeling very lopsided, where you have a lot of cheaper 1, 2, 3-cost cards to enable getting Wiccan to work, and then a bunch of really high top end to get the payoff. But if you draw those cards out of order, or maybe you don't get Wiccan that game, it feels like you're going to be playing a very, very suboptimal deck. And at that point, you're probably better off just playing a more traditional combo deck like Mr. Negative if you are that reliant on one specific 4-drop. With other cards like Hope Summers and Arsham being very prominent and powerful ways to enable energy chi at very little cost to the deck building, it just feels like Wiccan has a bit too many hoops to jump through in order to justify its benefit at the current cost. This is one of those cards I could see getting stronger over time, potentially, as +2 energy is nothing to scoff at, but in the current environment of Marvel Snap, I'll be very surprised if this card ends up seeing much play at all. As such, I'm giving Wiccan my lowest rating of this season, which is going to be a 1.5 stars. Then we have Wiccan's brother Speed. Speed is a 3-cost, 3-power that reads ongoing, +1 power for each turn in which you spent all your energy. So naturally, there is some synergy between the two brothers here, where Wiccan wants you to be curving out every turn, and Speed gives you benefit for doing that. Unfortunately, this card is just so incredibly boring. I think this is one of the most boring designs on a card they have made in a very, very long time. That's not really commenting on the power level. I don't think this is a super bad card or super unplayable card, but it strikes me as a card that is not going to excite many people into playing with it. I'm sure you're going to have some people embrace the meme and go Quicksilver into Domino into Speed into Wiccan, and hey, if you enjoy that, more power to you, but I don't think that's going to be a super powerful thing to be doing in the game right now. The potential of getting up to a 3/9 by playing on curve the whole game isn't bad, but it's hard to imagine many decks wanting to use a deck slot on something like this. Unlike in the developer update video, this card really does not warrant playing bad cards in your deck like Quicksilver and Domino. It probably won't be a bad inclusion in something like a Spectrum ongoing deck, as that deck typically likes to curve out and use all its energy each turn, and that makes this card get even better since you do get that +2 buff from Spectrum, or even just a residual buff from another ongoing card like Captain America. Unfortunately, that deck has fallen out of favor in the metagame quite a bit. It's not something that's super popular anymore just because it is a bit of a harder time competing with some of the more recent additions to the game. And outside of that, I find it really challenging to see where this card is going to find a home. One other place you could consider is something like the Sandman ramp decks. Those are also decks that are traditionally trying to just play out their energy each turn and get the max stats possible for that, so Speed might not be bad there. This is kind of a textbook example of a card I wish was a Series 4 card, because I do think more people will be willing to experiment with a design that is a little bit less exciting like this at a lesser cost, but unfortunately, we don't really get those anymore. So while the power level on this card isn't actually that bad, I think the flavor and the fun of it aren't really going to be enough to drive people to pick up this card, so it's getting a 2.5 stars from me. And last but not least, we have Emperor Hulkling. Emperor Hulkling is a 6-cost 11 power that reads at the start of the game, copy the text of a random 6-cost card. So there's going to be a lot of variance here. We can draw some similarities a little bit to something like Copycat, where It's a card that you do not know what it is going to consistently do in your deck. However, some of the high rolls that enables by putting powerful text on a different body than it is normally able to be put on can be very strong. That said, I do think this card has a lot more limited applications than Copycat. One of the reasons Copycat is so strong is the fact that you can get above rate effects on a below rate body. 3/5 also just being a very premium stat line where even if you don't get a great effect, you don't mind just playing it out for the body. Whereas with a 6/11, I don't think that is the case. I think this would need a little bit of bonus power to really make it feel above the other 6-drops, and I'm not really sure that's something they want to do. Also, naturally, by being a 6-drop, the amount of turns you can play this card is way, way more limited. I think it is a pretty cool and thematic design for a card, though. This is one of those cards where I don't expect this to be super competitive, but I do think that the players that like this kind of randomness, that like this kind of potential high roll or variance in the game, will have a whole lot of fun with this card. It definitely enables some pretty crazy high rolls with copying 6s like Leader, Zola, Galactus, and more, but there are also some very, very bad rolls like Agatha, the Destroyer, Infinite, just to name a few. I'll throw up a list on screen here really quick where you can see all the different 6-drops in Marvel Snap currently, and where I kind of rate them in terms of the power of Emperor Hulkling copying them. I'd also be curious to know if this is something the game announces to you at the start of the game, a la a Thanos animation or something, or if it's not something you find out until you actually draw the card. I'd imagine it's going to be that second one where it doesn't let you know, but if it does, well, there's at least a little bit of value there in knowing ahead of time and being able to plan around potentially drawing it. So yeah, while the flavor and fun of this card are pretty high, I don't expect the actual power of it to be that consistent, and as a result of that, I'm giving him a 3 out of 5 stars. And that is it for our Young Avengers season overview. So quick little roundup. In terms of the cards I'm planning on picking up this month, definitely going to be grabbing Kate Bishop from the season past. I think she's the best of the month. And I'm also going to be grabbing Marvel Boy because I think he is just really great for an archetype I've always liked in Zoo. And then I am a little on the fence about Emperor Hulkling. That's one where I'm probably not going to buy it on release, but I'm going to give it a few days, see what people do with it, see what the gameplay kind of looks like. And if it looks fun enough, then I might cave and grab it. But I plan on definitely passing on Wiccan and Speed. I do think it's actually a good thing, though, that there are some more underwhelming cards in this season, personally, though, because Snap has been putting out so many powerful cards that it's felt like it's been hard to skip a lot of the weeks in recent months, and naturally that results in a drain on players' resources. Through the limited information we have via data mines, it looks like we have some really, really cool and powerful seasons coming up in the following months in September and October, with the Spider and Symbiote seasons respectively. Now, things could change between now and then, but recently the data mines haven't been changing too much from pre-release, so they do give us a pretty decent idea of what these cards look like. And while this video isn't about going over those cards, we'll do that in due time. I know I want to pick up most, if not all of those cards because they look powerful and very fun. So I really don't mind having a bit more of a low-key season that allows players to naturally accumulate some more resources so they can hopefully engage with more of the really fun cards that are coming in the next 2 months. But that is going to wrap it up for this video. If you made it all the way to the end, I am going to be giving away a season pass. So if you want a chance to get Kate Bishop Hawkeye yourself, leave a comment below letting me know which of these is your favorite card of the season, and include the word bullseye somewhere in your comment. That's going to wrap it up for this one, though. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.